Les damos la bienvenida al segundo Congreso Mundial de Derecho Ambiental, una década crítica para el derecho ambiental, con las actividades propias del Congreso Interamericano sobre Derecho Ambiental, Biodiversidad y Derecho, que se realiza en la sede de la Suprema Corte de Justicia de la Nación de México. A continuación, hace uso de la palabra el ministro Antônio Benjamín, ministro del Tribunal Superior de Justicia del Brasil, quien realizará la conducción de esta ceremonia de inauguración. Por favor, ministro.
Buenas tardes a todos e a todas. Eu vou falar em português. Eu queria inicialmente...
De inicio me gustaría agradecerles aquí en la Suprema Corte de Justicia de la Nación de México por habernos recibido en sus instalaciones extraordinarias y con un corazón tan cálido, muy propio de los mexicanos.
Agradeço em especial
En particular agradezco
ao presidente da Corte,
al presidente
meu colega
de la Corte, mi colega, el ministro Arturo Saldívar,
e muito agradecido
y estamos muy agradecidos
ao meu amigo
con mi amigo,
ministro Alfredo
el ministro
Gutiérrez.
Alfredo Gutiérrez.
E temos aqui conosco
Aquí con nosotros tenemos el día de hoy
a ministra Norma,
a la ministra Norma Lucía Piña,
mais destacadas magistradas.
una de las magistradas más destacadas del mundo.
Nesses agradecimentos
En estos agradecimientos iniciales
deste importante evento
de este evento de suma trascendencia a nivel interamericano,
o nosso agradecimento ao
también me
professor
gustaría
Nicolas
expresarles nuestro
Breiner,
agradecimiento al profesor Nicholas Breiner,
que é o coordenador
quien es el coordinador ejecutivo
do nosso evento.
de nuestro evento.
E também a Emily Gaskin,
De igual manera a Emily Gaskin,
que trabalhou muitíssimo
que trabajó muy
para
arduamente
que nós nos encontrássemos
para que nos pudiéramos reunir
neste congresso
en este Congreso
de
Interamericano
Direito
sobre
Ambiental.
Derecho Ambiental.
Agradeço também ao
De igual
Steering
manera,
Committee
agradezco al Steering
da
Committee
nossa
o al
Comissão
Comité
Mundial
Ejecutivo de nuestra
de
Comisión
Direito
Mundial
Ambiental.
de Derecho Ambiental.
E, ao fazê-lo,
Y al realizar esto,
peço permissão a todas
le
e todos os
pido su
integrantes
permiso a todos ustedes, miembros
do Steering Committee,
de este Comité Ejecutivo,
para agradecer
para agradecer
a ex-presidente,
al
Chair
expresidente,
Emeritus,
nuestro
nossa
presidente
comissão,
emérito de nuestra comisión,
a ex-ministra da Justiça do
la
Paraguai,
exministra de Justicia de
doutora
Paraguay,
Sheila Abete.
la doctora Sheila Abete.
Agradeço também
Agradezco de igual manera
aos palestrantes.
a nuestros presentadores del día de hoy.
Nós temos aqui o que há de melhor no direito ambiental.
Tenemos aquí a los mejores del derecho ambiental en nuestra región,
Aos participantes,
a los
y a los
participantes y a los intérpretes.
o meu colega, professor Nicolas
Mi colega,
Breiner,
el profesor Nicholas
em
Breiner,
outro momento vai fazer
también en otra
agradecimentos
ocasión nos va a apoyar realizando agradecimientos
a várias
específicos
pessoas
a varias
que estão por
personas
trás
que también
da
se encuentran
organização
detrás
deste evento,
de la organización de este evento,
alguns daqui, da
incluidos
Corte Suprema
algunos de
do
aquí,
México.
de la Suprema Corte de Justicia de la Nación de México.
Finalmente, um agradecimento
Por último,
muito especial
también me gustaría dar un
ao
agradecimiento
diretor
muy
geral
especial al director
da
general
UCN,
de la
a
UICN,
UCN, Bruno Oberle,
a Bruno
e a toda a sua
Oberle
equipe.
y a todo su equipo.
Aos presidentes
A los
das comissões
presidentes de las comisiones
da UCN,
de la
me
UICN,
faço na pessoa
y también me
do meu
gustaría
queridíssimo
sobre
amigo
todo hablar sobre
Sean.
una persona que es mi queridísimo amigo, que es Sean, que se encuentra aquí con nosotros el día de hoy.
A palavra final
Unas últimas palabras que me
também
gustaría
de
decir es,
agradecimento ao PNUMA e
también
ao
son de agradecimiento
Ian
al
Anderson.
PENUMA, a Ian Anderson
e a Arnold Freihuber
y
e a toda a
Arnold
sua
Craig
equipe
Uva y a todo su equipo,
que
que siempre trabajan en alianza con nosotros. Y también nosotros vamos a pasarle la palabra a nuestra colega Ligia Noronha, que va a hablar en representación de PNUMA, y que es la secretaria general asistente de las Naciones Unidas. Con estas breves palabras de agradecimiento, ahora me gustaría pedirles a todos que acepten, por favor, que dediquemos un minuto de silencio como homenaje, en memoria, en remembranza de las víctimas de COVID en todo el mundo. Entonces, con el permiso de nuestros dos colegas ministros que organizaron este encuentro, les pido que por favor tomemos un minuto de silencio. Ahora tengo el honor de pasarle la palabra a mi colega y amiga, la profesora Christina Voigt, que es profesora de la Universidad de Oslo, una de las juristas más importantes en materia de derecho ambiental en el mundo entero. Alguien que todos respetamos muchísimo y que admiramos también. Ella nos hablará en representación de la Comisión Mundial de Derecho Ambiental, la profesora Christina Voigt. Adelante.
Thank you, dear Minister Antonio Benjamin, dear Excellencies, Justices, dear colleagues, dear friends.
Colegas.
It is with great pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of the World Commission on Environmental Law Steering Committee to the inaugural event of the Second World Environmental Law
del segundo Congreso Mundial de Derecho Ambiental.
The overall topic of the Congress focuses on the critical decade for environmental law. Due to the current pandemic, the Congress has been divided into several regional events, each focusing on a very important environmental topic. This Inter-American Congress, Environmental Law Congress, held in a hybrid manner in Mexico City, has also participants worldwide. I'm joining you here from Oslo in Norway, but I do wish full-heartedly I could have joined you in person. The Congress is kindly hosted by the Supreme Court of Justice in Mexico, to which the Steering Committee of the World Commission on Environmental Law would like to extend its sincerest gratitude. Thank you so much. Today and tomorrow, we will be joining in discussions about the topic of biodiversity and the law. And which place could be more suitable for addressing the pertinent issue than the biodiversity-rich Americas, stretching from the frozen tundra of the Arctic to the tallgrass prairies of the US Midwest, to the magical subtropical and tropical rainforests of Central and South America, including the Amazon basin, the world's largest and most biodiverse ecosystem of the world, to the high peaks of the Andes, the plains of Patagonia, and windswept Cape Horn, covering 14,000 kilometers in length and almost 30% of the surface, the land surface of our planet. A supercontinent which is home to a remarkable variety of flora and fauna and ecosystems, many of which only found here. Dear colleagues, biodiversity is life. Biodiversity is the book of life. Biodiversity is variability of life forms comprising of ecosystems, species, and genetic diversity. But we are losing this book before we even read it. Biodiversity is under daily threat. The 2019 Global Assessment Report of the Intergovernmental Science and Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, IPBS, shows very clearly that nature and its vital contributions to people are deteriorating worldwide. The report states that the biosphere upon which humanity as a whole depends is being altered to an unparalleled degree across all spatial scales. Biodiversity is declining faster than at any time in human history. Direct drivers for such decline are human activities, primarily land use change and sea use change, direct exploitation, hunting, harvesting, climate change, pollution, and the introduction of invasive species. But the report also states, and that should give us reason for optimism. The report also states that nature can be conserved, restored, and sustainably used, while simultaneously meeting other global societal goals through urgent and concerted efforts fostering transformative change. The report identifies 5 critical levers to enable transformative change. And among them, important for us today and tomorrow, among them, environmental law and its implementation, compliance, and enforcement. Environmental law is crucial, absolutely crucial to turn the tide. It is crucial to change values and behavior. Both on the international and the national level, we see vast developments in environmental law. Internationally, this year holds an important expectation: the adoption of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework under the Convention on Biological Diversity, a framework consisting of targets and goals and a mission, all support the vision for 2050 of living in harmony with nature. And the pandemic caused by the current zoonotic disease and the deterioration of wild places has only made it clearer the close connection between nature conservation, human health, and safety. This international framework will be decisive for a safe future for humanity. However, the global framework can only be as strong as the sum of its parts. And these are the national laws and regulations adopted by states and refined and enforced by courts. And the message they carry to all of society, corporate actors and private citizens, indigenous peoples and local communities, women and children, the next generation that will be starkly impacted if nature is not conserved and sustainably used and the decline reversed. National environmental laws and the environmental rule of law will be decisive to reach this objective. The World Commission on Environmental Law in its 2016 IUCN World Declaration on the Environmental Rule of Law outlined 13 principles for developing and implementing solutions for ecologically sustainable development. It is our hope that this will inform decision makers and implementers worldwide. These principles will also most certainly be of use to judges who already are faced with many biodiversity-related cases. With this as our background canvas for our discussions today and tomorrow on biodiversity and the law, it is with great pleasure and it is a privilege to introduce our opening speakers. And our first speaker is Justice Alfredo Gutiérrez Ortiz Mena from the Supreme Court of Justice of Mexico. Justice Gutiérrez Ortiz Mena, you have the floor.
Creo que ya. Para esta Corte es un privilegio ser anfitriona de este evento, en conjunto con la Comisión Mundial de Derecho Ambiental de la Unión Internacional de la Conservación de la Naturaleza y con el Programa de las Naciones Unidas para el Medio Ambiente. Este evento será el primero de 5 en la región. En esta ocasión conversaremos sobre las relaciones entre derecho y biodiversidad. La idea de los organizadores es propiciar un diálogo entre especialistas y actores relevantes sobre esta década crítica para el derecho ambiental. Queremos encontrar vías jurídicas para atender los problemas urgentes de nuestro tiempo. En estos 2 días intercambiaremos ideas sobre las tendencias y retos del derecho ambiental en las Américas. Hablaremos también sobre la protección de los defensores de medio ambiente, la aplicación del derecho ambiental en las cortes y tribunales, el desarrollo del derecho a la biodiversidad y sobre el papel de la administración pública, entre otros temas. La organización de este evento no es un hecho aislado. Se trata de un esfuerzo institucionalizado que retoma los logros previos y consolidados en instrumentos globales, desde los cuales se ha impulsado un estado medioambiental del derecho. Como antecedente de esta reunión, se debe subrayar la importancia de la Declaración Mundial de la Unión Internacional para la Conservación de la Naturaleza acerca del Estado de Derecho en materia ambiental, emitida en 2016. Esta declaración surge en el contexto del Congreso Mundial de Derecho Ambiental, celebrado en Río de Janeiro, Brasil, impulsado por distintas instituciones. En su construcción hubo significativas aportaciones de distintos juristas y sobre todo el apoyo de jueces y juezas de distintos países. Ahí quedó clara la importancia esencial de los tribunales en el establecimiento del Estado de Derecho en materia ambiental. Sin duda, los tribunales estamos llamados a lograr la aplicación efectiva de las leyes a nivel nacional, subnacional, regional e internacional, y a garantizar una administración de justicia independiente, accesible y en condiciones de igualdad. En 2021, la declaración se convierte en un instrumento con contenidos sustanciales e indispensables para entender la relación entre biodiversidad y derecho, y por lo tanto, resulta un referente obligado en las discusiones que iniciaremos. Dicha declaración destacó la urgencia de afrontar las perjudiciales intervenciones antropogénicas causantes de la transgresión sin precedentes en las fronteras planetarias y que se expresa en el cambio climático, la pérdida de la biodiversidad, el agotamiento de los recursos naturales y otras degradaciones ambientales, todas fuentes de inseguridad y de posibles conflictos sociales. Ahí se dijo que la vía para revertir estos graves problemas es la estrecha vinculación entre los derechos humanos, la conservación y la protección ambiental, así como el reconocimiento de la importancia de mantener la integridad ecológica para proteger el bienestar humano y combatir la pobreza. De todos estos esfuerzos y construcciones conceptuales, aparece la que sería la aportación superior de esta declaración: los principios del derecho ambiental al servicio del desarrollo progresivo de políticas y regímenes jurídicos orientados a la conservación y al uso sostenible de la naturaleza. Estos principios están evidentemente basados en los derechos humanos y libertades fundamentales de generaciones presentes y futuras. En este camino, la Suprema Corte de Justicia de la Nación se honra en albergar el debate constitucional sobre las formas necesarias y creativas para la utilización de los derechos humanos en la solución de los problemas ambientales. Por lo que hace a México, en junio de 2011, experimentamos una reforma constitucional que colocó a los derechos humanos como la fuente y el centro de cualquier decisión judicial. Desde entonces, esta Corte ha construido una sólida línea jurisprudencial que acompaña a la reforma. Así, ha confirmado que los tratados internacionales que reconocen derechos humanos son constitución y ha dotado a la jurisprudencia de tribunales internacionales como la Corte Interamericana de fuerza constitucional. De esta manera, la discusión sobre los problemas globales implicados en el derecho ambiental de fuente internacional y de derecho comparado es, para nosotros, un problema constitucional, como lo sería cualquier otro de carácter doméstico de derechos humanos. Finalizo diciendo que estos eventos demuestran el indudable papel que puede y debe jugar el derecho en la resolución y pacificación de los conflictos globales. Ya no sería factible negar que el derecho a un medio ambiente sano es un derecho humano digno de respeto, protección y garantía. Los jueces, las juezas, debemos apuntarnos en esos propósitos. Estamos llamados a impedir la degradación medioambiental con el más importante instrumento a nuestro alcance, el derecho expresado en nuestras decisiones. Nuevamente agradezco a quienes participan en este evento, a quienes lo hicieron posible y a quienes lo acompañan. Sean bienvenidos todas y todos. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Justice Gutiérrez, Ortiz, Mena. Thank you also to your highlighting of the relevance of human rights in the context of environmental protection and in particular biodiversity protection. Next, we would like to play a video address that was kindly provided by Dr. Bruno Oberle, who is the Director General of the International Union for the Conservation of
de la naturaleza.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to speak at this conference.
Para tomar la palabra en esta conferencia. Es todo un honor hablar del futuro del planeta,
the global loss of biodiversity and
el
climate change.
derecho de la biodiversidad y el cambio climático.
And global warming, a natural phenomenon caused by human activities. Our responses have come both from the side of the science
Esto viene a ser parte de la investigación
científica. Has two sides. Precisely in this matter, those sides are the science and the law.
La ciencia por un lado y el derecho por otro.
To achieve effective conservation and restoration of nature. For that, laws and policies have to be anchored in science, and the link between the scientific community and legal community must be strong. IUCN brings together scientists, policy and legal experts in a combined effort to promote and enhance conservation of the natural world by laying out reliable data on the state of biodiversity in protected areas, particularly through the red and green list. IUCN also engages with policymakers and legal practitioners to bring forward ambitious environmental, legal, and policy frameworks. Throughout this history, our organization has played a key role in initiating and drafting major international agreements, such as CITES, the World Heritage Convention, Ramsar, and the Convention on Biological Diversity, and many other regional agreements. Today, IUCN, through the collective effort of the World Commission on Environmental Law and the Environmental Law Center in Bonn, continues to shape the development of international environmental law, including biodiversity in areas beyond national jurisdiction. But the success of the law depends in many ways on its sound and effective implementation, so that the gap between commitment and enforcement can be closed, and thus ensure a responsible use of natural resources that can secure the ecologically sustainable development. To this end, IUCN works in close collaboration with governments and other key stakeholders around the world to enhance enforcement of environmental legislation and support the development of inclusive and effective implementation mechanisms. In recent years, the Supreme Court of Mexico has been at the forefront of environmental conservation through progressive enforcement of national laws in line with the right to a healthy environment enshrined in the Mexican Constitution. Gatekeepers of the law, judges sitting at all levels of the judiciary, have the power to secure effective enforcement of environmental law and to guarantee that the state fulfills its international commitments. To conclude, allow me to congratulate the World Commission on Environmental Law for co-organizing this series of events around the world, which are testimony of the importance of reinforcing the environmental rule of law to achieve global conservation objectives.
We would like to express our thanks to Dr. Bruno Oberle for this address to the Congress, but also in particular for highlighting the important linkages between the scientific and the legal community, while also stressing the importance of law and legal developments in the protection of nature. Our third speaker in this opening panel is Ligia Noronha. Ligia is the UN Assistant Secretary and Head of UNEP in the New York office. Ligia, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Professor Voigt. Minister Benjamin, Justice Gutiérrez Mena, Mr. Oberle, Mr. Batsin, colleagues, a very good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of the Executive Director of UNEP, Ms. Inga Anderson, I would like to thank the IUCN World Commission on Environmental Law for the partnership and for inviting UNEP to address this inter-American regional event of the Second World Environmental Law Congress, a critical decade for environmental law in Mexico City. I would like to convey our deep appreciation for your continued efforts in these difficult and complex times. Let us commend Justice Antonio Benjamin for his tireless leadership, and to Justice Alfredo Gutiérrez Ortiz Mena for the generosity of hosting this important event in the Supreme Court of Justice in the historic and beautiful city of Mexico. During these 2 days, you will drive the agenda on the regional implications of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework and its connections to the 2016 World Declaration on the Environmental Rule of Law. This is central to protecting the environment, eradicating poverty, and hitting the ambitious targets outlined in the Sustainable Development Goals. As the region remains deep in the COVID-19 pandemic, achieving these goals may seem further away. However, they're more important and urgent than ever, as we also must ensure that rebuilding after the pandemic takes us in a different direction rather than circling back around to the same normal. This normal brought us the 3 planetary crises that threaten our collective future: climate change, rapid nature and biodiversity loss, which is destroying the foundations of human well-being, and the pollution and waste crisis, which is causing millions of premature deaths each year. We've all seen and felt the impacts of these crises in the region and beyond. Excellencies, we're particularly encouraged to see biodiversity as the main theme for this event. Your discussions will not only provide vital contributions to the global discourse on biodiversity protection, but will also present an opportunity to remind us that stronger action to protect biodiversity in this mega-diverse region is needed. We've known for a very long time that biodiversity and the services it provides have been in decline. From COVID-19 to massive wildfires, floods, melting glaciers, and unprecedented heat, our failure to meet the IG targets to protect our home has very real consequences. We can no longer afford to cast nature to the side. Now is the time for a massive setup, conserving, restoring, and using biodiversity fairly and sustainably. If we do not, biodiversity will continue to buckle under the weight of land and sea use change, overexploitation, climate change, pollution, and invasive alien species. This will further damage human health, economies, and societies, with particularly dire impacts on indigenous communities. Furthermore, nature can be an important engine for pandemic recovery, long-term prosperity, and sustainable development in the region, but only if economies stop consuming faster than nature can regenerate. The Americas hold 40% of the world ecosystem's capacity to produce nature-based materials consumed by people, and equivalent to 3 times more resources provided by nature per capita than are available to an average global citizen. The economic value of this terrestrial nature's contribution to people in the Americas is estimated to be at least 24.3 trillion per year, equivalent to the region's gross domestic product. However, countries in the region are using nature more intensively than the global average and exceeding nature's ability to renew the contribution it makes to quality of life. The science, Excellencies, is clear. The next 10 years are paramount in the fight to avert climate change and the loss of nature and biodiversity. As we've commenced the United Nations Decade of Ecosystem Restoration 2021, it's vital that we all grasp and acknowledge that restoration is a global mission. It is an enormous task that is too big for any one organization or country to undertake. Some progress has been made in this regard. For example, in Latin America and the Caribbean, the proportion of land and marine areas protected from destructive use is above the global average. There are over 150 restoration projects contributing to the Bond Challenge. The Forum of Ministers of the Environment in early February adopted a regional action plan for the implementation of the UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration. But the region needs to do more, and in particular, it's urgent to tackle deforestation. This means protecting environmental defenders who are regularly threatened and killed. This means stronger enforcement and legislation on illegal land conversion, particularly through clearance fires. This also means handling more control of ecosystems to indigenous peoples who have been shown to manage protected areas better. And it means committing to a strong, ambitious, and comprehensive post-2020 biodiversity framework. Excellencies, environmental rule of law is essential for improving our relationship with nature, understanding its value and putting that value at the heart of decision-making at all levels. Environmental threats require effective responses that promote peace, justice, development, and the fulfillment of environment and human rights. And we just heard that brilliantly mentioned a little earlier. Environmental rule of law and robust institutions are essential to respond to increasing environmental pressures that threaten the ecological integrity of the earth in a way that respects fundamental rights and principles of justice and fairness as set out in the IUCN World Declaration on Environmental Rule of Law of April 2016. The first ever global assessment of environmental rule of law that UNEP presented in 2019 found weak enforcement to be a global trend that is exacerbating environmental threats, despite prolific growth in environmental laws and agencies worldwide over the last few decades. The report found that despite a 38-fold increase in environmental laws put in place since 1972, the failure to fully implement and enforce these laws is one of the greatest challenges to mitigating climate change, reducing pollution, and preventing widespread species and habitat loss. UNEP is committed to supporting this work and contributing to an ambitious outcome of this regional congress in reaffirming, further developing, and advancing the 2016 World Declaration and setting the stage for the design of its implementation guidelines. Excellencies, 2021 is a pivotal year, as we all know. It's when much of the work to set out our post-pandemic course is taking place. It is the year of the delayed COP, a climate COP, but it's also the year of the post-2020 biodiversity framework, the beyond 2020 chemicals framework, and the beginning of the UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration. It's a remarkable year, therefore, for the advancement of environmental rule of law. The year when momentum around the universal recognition for the right to a healthy environment has accelerated. 69 states signed a joint statement that represents an unprecedented level of support for the global recognition of the right to a healthy environment and a commitment to proceed with the process of formalizing this recognition with the support of the UN Secretary General, heads of UN agencies, including the Executive Director of UNEP, 15 UN agencies, as well as over 1,100 civil society and indigenous organizations who signed a pledge calling for the recognition of that right. This is the year of the adoption of the resolution of the United Nations Human Rights Council, calling for a human rights-based approach in conserving and restoring natural spaces, which notes and advances the need for a human rights-based approach in the context of conserving, restoring, and sustainably using biodiversity, particularly in the context of the ongoing post-2020 biodiversity framework negotiations and the One Health initiative. This year of the entry into force of the Escazú Agreement of access to information, public participation, and access to justice in environmental matters in Latin America and the Caribbean. The first regional multilateral environmental agreement, which contains provisions for protecting environmental human rights defenders. The year of the first meeting of national focal points of the Montevideo Program on Environmental Law, where countries have provided guidance to UNEP on relevant institutional arrangements for the program and identified priorities for implementation in the field of environmental rule of law. As we prepare for the 5th United Nations Environmental Assembly in February 2022, under the overall theme of strengthening action for nature to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and the celebration of UNEP's 50 years of work, as well as the 50th anniversary of the 1972 United Nations Conference on the Human Environment in Stockholm, this is a time indeed to reflect on the past and envision the future. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, UNEP is a proud partner of this event. We salute you for continuing to raise a strong voice for the planet in crisis and for your inspirational work towards a more just and sustainable world. We look forward to contributing to the outcomes of this Congress and working together as we strive to strengthen environmental rule of law and so build a better future for all life on Earth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ligia. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you also for highlighting the link back to the overall theme of the Congress, which is the critical decade for environmental law. And you pointed out that the next 10 years are paramount to get most of the transitional changes in place so that we are on track to reach all these global goals around 2050. Thank you for highlighting that and so much else. But most of all, thanks to UNEP for the unfaltering collaboration with the World Commission on Environmental Law, a collaboration which has been ongoing for a long time, and we very, very much appreciate that. Thank you so much. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I turn the floor back to Ministro Antônio Benjamin. Thank you.
Eu queria agradecer à professora Christina Voigt por coordenar esta sessão de abertura.
Muchas gracias por coordinar esta sesión de apertura y por hacerlo de una forma que no nos sorprende, pero es absolutamente excepcional, profesional y muy clara. Estamos bien de tiempo y por lo tanto quisiera pedir con la venia de los colegas la oportunidad de romper un poco el protocolo e invitar a mi colega Michael Wilson, Justice Michael Wilson del Tribunal Superior de Hawái, a dirigirnos la palabra y a dar la bienvenida en nombre de los jueces de todo el mundo.
Muchas gracias, Minister Antonio Benjamin.
Al ministro Antonio Benjamín. Esta es una conferencia de muchísima importancia, ciertamente para los Estados Unidos, para los jueces, magistrados de Estados Unidos y, por supuesto, los jueces del mundo entero. Y es un lugar muy apropiado para que nos reunamos, el hogar de la justicia, y con los ministros que son líderes aquí en México, tal como se ha descrito por la profesora Voigt, tal como lo ha descrito el secretario adjunto general, y también, por supuesto, por parte de la conservación de la naturaleza. Estamos en una crisis sin precedente alguno y la solución que hay para los jueces alrededor del mundo es precisamente ser los arquitectos de la misma, a una muy intensa y compleja problemática que la humanidad alguna vez haya enfrentado. Así que muchísimas gracias a nuestros jueces. Les extiendo mi agradecimiento. Nuestros jueces buscan colaborar que nos lleve a soluciones de esa forma, puesto que estas soluciones requieren un intercambio de conocimiento por parte de los expertos que tomarán la palabra el día de hoy, algunos de los expertos académicos más importantes en el derecho ambiental, y también la oportunidad de participar como jueces en el sentido de compartir los desafíos que tenemos en estos momentos y también compartir la necesidad de organizarnos junto con la comunidad legal y el liderazgo intelectual que tiene que ver con el derecho ambiental alrededor del mundo. Así que con toda humildad agradezco en nombre de los jueces del mundo y también de parte de la Suprema Corte ubicada en Hawái, que les manda sus saludos, los mejores deseos para nuestros buenos amigos y a los líderes alrededor del mundo que se han reunido para ayudar a los jueces en todas partes del planeta. Muchas gracias al ministro Benjamín. Nuevamente les extiendo un amable aloha.
Eu agradeço ao Justice Michael Wilson.
Quisiera agradecer a Justice Michael Wilson y nos quedan algunos minutos. Quisiera invitar a mi colega y querido amigo Sean Southey a hablar a nombre de las comisiones de la UICN.
So I'm inviting you, Sean Southey, to speak on behalf of the commissions and to thank our hosts.
Thank you, Mr. Alfredo. My name is Sean. I have the honor of
Tengo el honor de representar a la Unión Internacional para la Conservación de la Naturaleza y me da mucho gusto estar aquí reunido a la voz y orden del ministro Benjamín. Y 4 años se volvieron 5 años y tenemos que trabajar juntos durante mucho tiempo como lo hemos hecho hasta ahora. La colaboración que hemos visto a través de la representación del poder de la Unión de la UICN y por parte de las comisiones en su totalidad, les quiero recordar de que están ustedes a cargo y que están en la línea frontal para establecer la legislación que hará que el planeta sobreviva. No podremos hacer ese trabajo sin nuestros socios a lo largo de todo el mundo. Por tanto, le mando mis respetos a nuestros colegas mexicanos por habernos dado este contexto tan hermoso para este pensamiento productivo que se dará en esta ocasión.
Quiero agradecer a nuestro compañero Sean Southey y pasaremos entonces inmediatamente a nuestro primer panel de alto nivel.